Let's see, who else do we have here today? All right. So Pearl Insurance is our insurance provider for E&O. They produce these monthly snippets to keep us to help keep us out of Realtor Jail. And this one was published in May of 2025. So this lesson today is going to be the November 2025 lesson taken from May 2025's newsletter. All right. So E&O claims and disciplinary actions, complaints against real estate professionals most often arise when there is not adequate contractual documentation executed in the file to limit the scope of the real estate agent's obligations in a given transaction. So, not adequate documentation is things like this contract is contingent on home inspection, or maybe not that. This contract is contingent on seller replacing the dishwasher. A statement like that is a very ambiguous statement that doesn't really isn't defined, doesn't provide the terms of what the contingency offers, doesn't provide terms for what the contingency doesn't do, and what doesn't provide terms for what the consequences are for the parties and what happens in the event that the contingency fails. It just says contingent on, but there, it doesn't define it. So you're real. It's a word salad that really means nothing. This contract is contingent on the seller replacing the dishwasher is a word salad of nothingness. So you have to define it. So an agent provides referral. So another example of a lot of leading causes for complaints is an agent provides referrals for home inspectors, contractors, and other professionals without qualification, meaning without verifying if that contractor is a licensed contractor in their specialty. A lot of times we use the terms licensed contractor very loosely and flippantly. Well, but what's meant in the contract when we're talking about a licensed contractor is licensed in their trade field, not whether or not they are licensed with the municipality to do business, which is a totally different kind of license. But a lot of times we pursue a lot of these recommendations, and we're satisfied just because we see that the local jurisdiction has given them a license to do business, but that's not a license to be a plumber. That's not a license to be an electrician or a general contractor or whatever. So without verifying those qualifications, we put ourselves in liability and to be potentially blamed should something go wrong in the complaint process. Another example is an agent utilizes unclear and informal communication with texts with clients. So we'll get into that in a little bit. So adequate contractual documentation. So when engaging a client as the listing agent or a buyer's agent, it is critical to execute a formal client representation agreement. Many states promulgate this, yada, yada, yada. A representation agreement limits a real estate agent's obligation in a transaction. So if you're conducting business without a brokerage relationship, you have open season legality setting up against you for anybody to file a complaint based on what they feel you owe, the duty that you owe them. Because you didn't define what you will and what you will not do, now it's open season, and that's the point of this paragraph here is they're talking about having that kind and defining very clearly in your brokerage agreements exactly what it is that you will and what it is that you will not do, and for what kind of compensation. When a real estate agent fails to have a representation agreement executed, it's much easier for a client to later claim they expected their real estate agent to provide services such as inspecting the property when they weren't available or were not contracted for. Additionally, representation agreements protect a real estate agent right to collect a fee. And so if you don't have that agreement, then you probably may not be able to collect a compensation fee. So this is on top of all the other reasons to have a buyer agency and a listing agreement. Those are the ones. And when you're working outside of those agency relationships, you are putting yourself in liability for a complaint. Referrals. It's a common practice for real estate agents to refer clients to other professionals, home inspectors, contractors, lenders, etc., for various needs. However, these types of referrals often lead to E&O claims and disciplinary complaints when the client is unhappy with the referred professional and blames their agent for the referral. There are precautions as a real estate agent and broker can take to mitigate, although these types of complaints, while still providing a needed referral source service for the clients. At a minimum, an agent should always provide more than one, I recommend three, referrals for that type of business specialists. Provide a client with more than one referral option to choose from, and then make it clear to them that whoever they choose is their choice. This is your choice. I'm giving you these names, Mr. and Miss Client, but the choice of selecting them is of this person is yours to make, and you can choose others that I'm not recommending here. So the choice is yours to make. It's not me telling you to use this person, but the choice is yours to make. As an additional protection, real estate professionals should include a clause in their client representation agreements or incorporate as an addendum thereto to disclose a disclosure specifically related to referrals and third party. And we already have that in our buyer and listing agreements. So that's just saying that we're not contractors, we're not vendors, we're not inspectors, et cetera, et cetera. And they need to rely on those specialists to get the benefit of those services. Text messages. When you're sending text messages tend to be, we let our guard down with what we're telling people a lot of times in text messages. And text messages are bad, and for a lot of reasons, because our guard is because it's a less formal means of communication than email or another written agreement. We oftentimes give it less attention and don't fully qualify the things that we're writing in text, and therefore we put ourselves in danger. So text messages have become a common method of communication between agents and clients. However, the use of text messages over emails and other forms of written communication have downsides. Text messages tend to be the most informal written means of communication with the client, and when not specific, the key there is when not specific, can result in misinterpretation by the client and others, which can result in confusion and give rise to E&O claims and disciplinary complaints. Likewise, if critical information regarding a property or transaction relayed on a phone call or a video conference is not then followed up in writing, the door remains open for deferring recollections of what information was actually said. So whenever you have a needed, important topic that you're discussing, either over the phone, in person, over text message, always follow it up with an email to clearly articulate the message and to rephrase it in a way that will make it clear that they do not, there is no confusion about it. It's always best practice to send critical information to clients and other real estate professionals involved in a transaction via email, even if such information was already relayed verbally via text. This is not only to clarify any potential ambiguity in the prior communication, but also because text messages are commonly deleted, lost phones are replaced, whereas emails tend to be more readily accessible and recoverable. So those are some really good reasons to really use your email as a good backup for that. So that's pretty much the extent of this class that we're doing today. Any thoughts on that? All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for attending, and go ahead and let's hit the streets and make some money.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.